Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Good morning for those of you who are here. Thank you for coming. For those of you who are on Zoom, maybe good afternoon or good evening. For those of you who are watching later on YouTube, enjoy your coffee. I'm Cyril, and I spend a lot of time just watching the world and trying to understand what's going on. And most of the time, it leads to absolutely nothing. But in the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to educate myself and researching on the relationship between blockchain, Web3, all that ecosystem that we are trying to picture and understand, and energy. What's going on with energy? I mean, we live in a world where everybody is telling us that we need to consume less, we need to transition to green energy. You know, we need to be, hello, good morning, better at consuming, better at caring for the world, that we need to move into green and all that. And at the same time, we hear that a blockchain named Bitcoin is consuming something like more than Argentina in terms of electricity every year. You're like, oh my God, that's not acceptable. Now, I'm going to try to demonstrate today why this is a good news, how it can change the world in a better way, and why, we're fucked. So, can I have the next slide, please? Breaking news! Winter is coming in Europe. Now, if you are living in Europe, not here, we're in Bali, but if you're living in Europe, winter is coming, season 9 of Game of Thrones. Yeah, not really. There's going to be penguins in your home, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Another breaking news, a couple of weeks ago, Ethereum, one of the main blockchain, reduced its energy consumption by 99.95%. Yeah, just that, okay? It was a feat of technical engineering. They did something completely crazy. It's a beautiful paradigm shift. We'll get back to that and try to understand the pros and cons of that switch. Then, as I was just telling you, Bitcoin is in the top 30 countries in terms of electricity consumption. Isn't that crazy? And finally, I'm going to reconnect to a previous talk, which was about the third industrial revolution. And basically, it was after that talk and a few questions that I had that I wanted to focus on energy, because it's a key element if we want that third industrial revolution to happen. Can I have the next one? So, okay, there's something going on in Europe that I need to cover first. The energy market in Europe has a fundamental technical flaw from its own design. Okay, so this is not something that we can change easily. How can I basically, the price of electricity at any given moment is calculated based on the variable cost of the most expensive unit that is being produced. Okay, I lost everybody here, so I'll try to explain that in a more comprehensive way. Let's imagine you're at home, okay, and you have a fireplace. Now, you have wood logs, okay? So those wood logs, you cut them beforehand, you have a stack. So you can use them, and basically, technically, it's kind of free for you to use a wood log that is sitting right here when you want to warm your place. So you take a wood log, put it in the fire, let it go. Good morning. That log is gone, you take another one, and so on. And at some point, maybe you run out of log, but you still want to get warm. Now, you can't get straight away a new log, okay? You would need to go out, cut it, let it dry. It's going to take months. So if you want to stay warm, what you can do is go to your bookshelf and take those books. Technically, they are wood, right? You can throw them in the fire. Now, the cost per calorie, per unit of energy, when you burn books, and I know burning books is kind of a bad analogy, empty books, it's going to be way higher than burning the log. Okay? So at any given time, the price of energy on the European market is calculated based on the variable cost of the last thing you burned. Okay? So you can imagine that, like, for instance, solar or wind energy, all the renewable energy, their variable cost is zero. Once the installation is done, you just collect the energy. The sun doesn't send a bill, the wind doesn't send a bill, so the cost for that is zero. Then there's like nuclear. As you probably know, we're going to talk about it later. Europe has been, still is, heavily invested in nuclear energy. But then at some point, because you need to match the production exactly with the consumption at any given time. Okay? So obviously in winter you consume more than in summer. And in the middle of the night, if it's getting really, really cold, maybe you're going to consume even more. Maybe not in the middle of the night, say when everybody wakes up, 8 in the morning, we turn on the heater, we put on the kettle, energy consumption goes up. So what do you do at that time? You go for a source of energy that is very easy to turn on and off. Renewable, not easy to turn on and off. You wait for it to happen. Nuclear, not going into detail, very hard to crank up or crank down. So you let it run and it's going to produce the biggest chunk of the energy you need, at least in Europe. So that marginal part here on top of the wave, that one, everywhere in Europe and everywhere in the world, is being produced with gas. And as we are going to see a little bit later, but the price of gas, as you might have heard, went through the roof. So the price of energy on the market is basically based on the worst energy in terms of cost. Okay? That's why you hear all over the place that the price of energy in Europe is going up. But this is not reflecting a reality. This is reflecting a technical flow in the way the energy market in Europe has been designed from the very beginning. Is that fair? No. Is that reflecting the reality in any way? No. But that's how it goes. And I don't know if you're familiar with financial product, okay? But the best image I could find when it comes to Europe, and what I'm going to try to explain now, is that Europe, in the last 5 to 10 years, went at the policy level, they went short on energy. And they're about to get liquidated. Can I have the next one? No? Okay, I'm fired. Okay. So there are 3 things that I want to put together to try to understand what's happening right now in Europe. The first one is what happened after Fukushima Daiichi and the political chain reaction that followed with that, the COVID whiplash, and yeah, you know, that guy. So in 2011, something happened in Japan. Not good. As in, they put that accident at the same level of Chernobyl. Thank you. So really, really, really not good. I'm not going to go into the detail of what happened, but it happened. Now, there are two consequences that came out of this. Okay, the first one is that everybody who's running a nuclear power plant on their soil had a reaction, in terms of what if? What if this is happening to us? What if we have a tsunami? What if we have an earthquake? What if there's a bomb? What if the command center is going on? And so on and so on. So they went through, for a few years, a lot of upgrade in terms of safety, security, making sure that something like Fukushima Daiichi or Chernobyl could not happen again. Now, you know what? They did a very good job. Because I don't know if you've heard in the news, but in Ukraine, right now, they're getting bombed like on a daily basis. Their nuclear power plant, at least the one that are still supposed to be functioning, they are still functioning. Okay? They've been occupied. Yeah, they shut it down for like a couple of days, but it keeps on running. And those are some of the biggest power plants in Europe that you have in Ukraine. So that safety, security, natural reaction that happened after Fukushima Daiichi led to a very positive, constructive upgrade all over the world when it comes to nuclear energy. Okay, now on the policy level, what happened in Japan gave the kick above the cliff, in Europe at least. Sweden got rid of its nuclear energy. Belgium was planning to do the same thing. Angela Merkel, a couple of years later, probably to save her ass, but maybe because she really believed it was a good thing, promised and made sure that Germany would walk out of their nuclear fleet. So they started to get rid of the smallest, weakest, least efficient power plant. And the plan was to shut down the last 6 most powerful, most efficient nuclear in Germany in 2022. Now, at the same time, in France, which is by far the most nuclear-oriented country in the world, I'm French, had the same policy reaction. In 2015, they were like, we are going to reduce the share of nuclear in our fleet. Now, I don't know if it's a coincidence. Let's say it is a coincidence, but they found cracks in some pipe in an emergency security whatever system, which is just supposed to carry water, and they're like, not good. So they started to inspect those cracks, and they realized that they have to upgrade their power plants. As I speak, 32 out of the 56 reactors in France are off. Oopsie. Okay? Anyway, in October, guess what's coming? Winter. They are scheduled to be put back online in February or March 2023. In the same vein, Germany is like, oh, maybe we fucked it up, so they managed to keep 2 nuclear reactors running until the end of the winter. So sincerely, if I was Russia and I wanted to fuck up with Europe, what happened in the last few months would have been the perfect play. Okay? It's like they went short, and at the last moment, we're cutting the gas. So I'll move to that point. I guess you've heard about it, but there's a little bit of tension between Russia and Europe. And basically what happened is that even if Europe managed to pile enough gas to go through most of the winter, there's no gas flowing at the moment. In fact, somebody made sure that it would not happen because the two largest pipeline that goes from Russia to Europe, Nord Stream 1 and 2, have been attacked. There are 3 leaks between those two pipelines, therefore they are not running. Let's set aside the fact that this is an ecological catastrophe because there's like millions of cubic meters of gas, methane, that are going up in the atmosphere. Somebody made sure that replenishing the stock in Europe for gas, which again is, that top part, most of the fundamental is being covered by, nuclear and hydroelectricity and whatever. But what makes the system work is gas. So, blah, blah, that's covered. So, the last thing that we can put together is the COVID whiplash, okay? When COVID happened and the world shut down, basically consumption went down, including electrical consumption. Now, again, something that you have to keep in mind is that energy is something that we do not really store. I mean, there are ways, there are batteries, Tesla is working on them. You can elevate water and keep it for later in form of potential hydroelectricity. But most of the time, somebody is consuming, you need to produce, and you need to produce exactly what is being consumed. So when we went through nearly 2 years of low consumption, we adapted to that. And then suddenly, at the beginning of the year, consumption went up again. So we burned through the stock. We burned through our capacity. When I say our, mostly in Europe, but sincerely, it's true all over the world. And the thing is, once you have that whiplash, basically you're running after trying to replenish your system and make sure that you can match it. So when you combine those 3 things together, I want to say, from the bottom of my heart, if you're in Europe, get the fuck out as soon as possible. But I do not believe that it's going to be a complete catastrophe this winter, the one that goes from 2022 to 2023, okay? Europe will go through that. It's going to be painful. There's going to be penguins in your living room, but we're going to go through that. The real question is what's going to happen in February or March where the gas stock in Europe is going to be completely depleted. What happens at that time if there is no gas flowing in Europe? They are going to pay, we are going to pay that price next year. So the winter between 2023 and 2024, that one is going to be a pure nightmare. So, okay, that's kind of grim, but in Europe, they realize, okay, who's European here or coming from Europe? Okay, do you read the local news sometimes? Like I do, I read the French news. I promise you, every maybe day at the moment, but definitively every week, there's news, there's article, there's analysis about how we are being fucked at energy level, okay? All over Europe, they are taking emergency patches. So as I said, for instance, in Germany, they're keeping a couple of nuclear power plants running while they were supposed to be stopped and decommissioned. In both Germany and France, at least for those 2 countries, I don't know about the other, the governments are imposing, for instance, cold water so there's no more warm water in every governmental building. The temperature of swimming pool is taken down by 1, maybe 2 degrees. They're asking everybody to, work from home if possible, to drive, in a smoother way and maybe slightly slower. Not going to happen for us. Basically, what Europe needs right now is to cut down their energy consumption by 10% through the whole winter, if you don't want to have temporary blackouts here and there. My money is on the fact that there's going to be death because of that. Now, can I have the next one? I am not done with you. You want grim? I'm going to give you ugly. Lehman. Do you remember Lehman Brothers, 2008? Yeah, the real estate bubble and the collapse. There was one bank that went on. So what happened there is that the derivative market fucked them up. Now, something very interesting that I didn't know before doing my research is that there is a derivative market for energy. And the energy operators in Europe are using that market exactly how it is supposed to be. They're using those derivatives as an edge against the price going down. Okay? Because most of the time, as an operator, you're buying energy long time in advance. Okay? It is somehow a commodity. So the thing is, to make sure that the energy you bought at a given price, you're not being fucked when the price goes down, you buy a derivative. But the price went up. In fact, the price of energy doubled, tripled in the last couple of weeks. So what happens when you make a bet in one direction and the price goes on the other direction? Well, you have to put collateral. And if you can't, you're being liquidated. Now, the amount of collateral we're talking about right now in Europe is in the range of $1.5 trillion. Okay? 15,000 billion dollars. That's a lot of money. Okay? So again, if you read the news, you'll see that in every country in Europe, they are taking actions. They are providing subsidies. Basically, they are bailing out. Okay? Exactly like they bailed out the bank back in 2008 in the US and in Europe 2 years later. Now, the thing is, and this is my personal opinion, when it comes to a bank, they play with our money and they fuck it up, let them die. Okay? That's just me. I'm not telling you you should think that way. When it comes to an energy operator, I'm in favor of bailing them out. But we have to understand that this derivative market for energy is connected to all the financial market. So what happens if there's $1.5 trillion of collateral that are not being posted? People are going to get liquidated. This is going to be ripple all over the financial market. So that's one thing. Okay, we talked about that. Oh yeah, food crisis, China whiplash. Just, for the fun. Can you give me the next one? We're going to cover those fast. But apart from the fact that Ukraine is the garden in which we produce a lot of food that feeds Europe, it costs energy to make food. Just a few days ago, not in Indonesia. Well, yes, it does. To some extent. Like an article I read last week is how, like making croissant. And you know how much I love croissant. Okay, Okay, the cost of making croissant just went through the roof. Because those guys, I mean, they're running ovens all day long. Yes, yeah. But the thing is that the price of electricity is you know, like it's interconnected. So to some extent, okay, not Indonesia. Not Indonesia. Yeah, but right now, even if in Indonesia you have a lot of sun, sure, you can grow food, but you cannot process food without energy. That's one thing. Two, oh yeah, fertilizer. I'm not even going to go into that one, but what happened right now in Ukraine and Russia? Bad. But the good thing, sorry, it's not even a good thing. It's a problem for next year. Because you produce fertilizer now and you use it next year. So we're, again, you know, the real problem is going to rise next year. We're going to start burning the books and everything we find, like we're going to take the curtain and maybe we're going to throw the chair, the wooden chair, you know, just to keep us warm. So that was a month ago, September 7, Financial Times. Food is going to be expensive, there might be shortage. Can you give me the next one? That one I love. Still about energy. Okay? So the funny thing is that China is the biggest producer of hydroelectricity. It's also the biggest producer of solar electricity, or basically they're making a very nice, swift move into renewable. So hydroelectricity, basically you have a dam, you leave water behind. When you need electricity, you open the tap, that makes energy. It's gravitational energy using water. It's one of the most efficient ways of producing energy. Now, how do you get water in the dam? You wait for the rain. What happened last summer? No rain in the northern hemisphere. No water, no energy. So all the power plants around the Sichuan River, and there's some, sorry, not power plants, all the factories around the Sichuan River, they didn't work. They literally shut down factories. Now, on top of that, China is going for a zero COVID policy, which means that every week they're taking a 20 million inhabitant city and they shut it down for a couple of weeks. Which means that everything that you're supposed to have for Christmas on the shelf in Europe, which is coming from China, which is taking a few months to go from A to B on a boat, is not going to be there. So let me repeat it. If you're living in Europe, so I'm not talking to you guys, but if you're living in Europe, between the price of electricity, the food clusterfuck, and the supply chain, get the fuck out. That's all I can say. Like, come to Bali, life is good, we have coconut, and as Sim said, we can have like smoothie bowl on a regular basis. Do you have any question about the Europe shit show? No? Okay. Can I have the next one then? Now let's move to the good news. I hope everybody's sad right now. Let me have some. Yeah. So, Ethereum you've all heard about that. Like Ethereum switching from proof of work to proof of stake. Okay? That is a crazy achievement. Okay? Some people compared it, and I believe they are right, as if you're trying to change all 4 engines on a plane while flying, running low on fuel. And they did it. Beautiful. And by doing so, they reduce their energy consumption by 99.95%. Fantastic. We should all do that, no? Well, let's look a little bit into detail. Can I have the next one? So, proof of work is basically letting a bunch of computers working and trying to solve problems, and they're competing together, and basically they're proving that they are achieving a work by solving problems or mathematical equations, and that's how we create the next block that goes on the blockchain. I will assume that everybody kind of understands what a blockchain is, but basically it's like a very big ledger, and every time you want to write an information, there's going to be people collecting all those information, the changes on the ledger, and they're going to pack them into a block, and then they're going to attach that block to the previous block in ways that you cannot modify the information that was written on the blockchain. Okay? Then we call that a consensus mechanism. Ethereum, like Bitcoin, was using proof of work, which is brutal, but it works. And they switched to a proof of stake. The proof of stake is you just prove that you're taking a risk by becoming a validator. So the way it works today for Ethereum is that anybody who has 32 Ethereum, so based on present price, it's around $40,000, anybody who holds 32 Ethereum can become a validator. And to validate the block, they're going to get reward, which is more Ethereum, and everybody's happy. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't own 32 Ethereum. I wish I would, but I don't. So there are a couple of possibilities. Either you have your own 32 or more Ethereum and you can stake them. So you take them, you lock them, you become a validator. Those 32 Ethereum are basically the proof that you're serious enough to become a validator, and you're going to get a reward every time you validate a new block. Or, like me, you don't have 32 Ethereum, so what you can do, you can pool them together, okay? Now, one of the problems we can see coming is the concentration of staking platform, okay? You have 1 Ethereum, I have 0.5, you have 6, and so on. We can pool them all and become a validator together. But the thing is, we don't trust each other because we don't know. I mean, we do, but we don't. So how do you deal with that? You yield your Ethereum to a platform that is going to stake them for you. Okay? Now, those platforms, they may ring a bell, you know, are Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, but also one that's called Lido. Now, the one I just mentioned together, the top 5, they control more than 64% of all the Ethereum that are being staked at the moment. Okay? So we have a massive concentration of decision capacity into the hands of a few. That doesn't sound very decentralized to me. Now, is that a problem? Not yet. Could it be a problem in the future? Fuck yes. So another thing that we can, okay, briefly we can talk about MEV, so the maximum extractable value. So what happens is that you can run a software on top of your node where, okay, when you have a bunch of transactions that you want to put together, sometimes it makes more sense or it generates more revenue to put them in a different order. So ordering and deciding which transaction goes in and which transaction does not go in your block, which one is going to wait, which one is going to go first, that can maximize the amount of reward you get as a validator. And I promise you, people are getting really good at this. Now, what if the people who are running those MEV comply with, I don't know, the Security Exchange Commission or some institution that says, you know what, all those addresses, don't process them. It has happened already, okay? There's a, how you call that, like a washing machine, I forgot the name. Basically, forget about it. But that could be a problem, okay? It has not been a problem yet, but it could become a problem. Now, the good news in that story is that all those guys I'm talking about, the staking platform, the Lido, the Binance, Kraken, Coinbase, and all that, they do not run the validator nodes themselves, okay? They are using provider, they are using operator. So in fact, when you look closely, you realize that even if Lido controls 30% of all the nodes, or all the validators nodes that are being run on Ethereum today, they are using dozens of different operators, and therefore they are spreading the risk of centralization, because then each one of those operators would need to comply with the order of not letting, say, the Russian to move Ethereum. But there's a joke here. Because where are those validators? 47% of them right now are in the US. They are physically located in the US. So you know what happened a couple of weeks ago? There's a lawsuit going on between some scam ICO that happened. ICO is initial coin offering. So basically, there was one of those Ponzi whatever project, as we were discussing before we start. There's so many of them in this industry. And the SEC is suing the people who promoted and created that scam. Okay, that's good. So what they did, the SEC, they're like, because nearly 50% of the operators of the Ethereum blockchain are in the US, Ethereum is in the US. So they decided that the jurisdiction that would apply in that lawsuit is the one in the US, just because the validators are located in the US. So here we have a second potential problem that is already being put in motion by the SEC when it comes to the switch from proof of work to proof of stake for Ethereum. Now, the last one is about host and infrastructure. Because I don't know, so we have the staking platform, they are using operators, but those operators are using either their own machine, their own data center, or they are renting, power capacity and servers.
Who owns Ethereum? And I heard something about like JP Morgan owning a ton of it. Is that true?
Okay, on paper, Ethereum is being run by a foundation, the Ethereum Foundation, but it is supposed to be owned by nobody. Supposed to. However, the fact that there are JP Morgan or BlackRock or, yes, those guys investing, like submarine from under the radar, under the table, and they're starting to acquire assets in the crypto industry? Oh, definitively yes. In fact, follow them, look at what they are buying, which platform they are backing, and you will have an idea of the shape of what is going to come next. 90% of all the projects you hear about in this industry are going to die. mostly because they are pure scam and completely stupid, but also because sometimes they are weak or they are fighting against the system.
Okay, final question. Are you bullish on Ethereum right now? And where do you think it's going to be in 5 years?
I have no fucking idea. Okay, I am bullish on Web3. Okay, I am bullish on the fact that this piece of technology is going to revolutionize the world in ways we do not comprehend today. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I was at university back in '95 when they were starting to talk about something called the internet. Okay? So I went like, okay, I'm gonna study this. So I went to computer science just so I could watch porn on the internet. Oh, I promise you, porn back in '96, good stuff. Sorry. Did I say that out loud? Okay, so the one thing I can promise you is that everybody, teachers, students, researcher in university back in France back in '96, we had no fucking idea of what internet would become and how it would change the world. I mean, we understand, HTTP protocol, we understood that, you can send mail. We were like, okay, maybe fax is gonna die. But the rest of it, the Airbnb, the Uber, the Facebook, we didn't see that one coming. Okay? So whatever you're dreaming about today when it comes to blockchain, you're short. You're really short. So, I'm going to reframe your question back in '96. Do I believe that Netscape would run the world? Yep, I did. I was like, this thing is fantastic. It's dead. So I'm bullish on the whole ecosystem. Okay. Again, I know what I'm doing mostly is strategy, so spend my time just looking at things and trying to understand how they work. In the detail is I'm bullish on Bitcoin. That one I'll give to you. But we're going to talk about that in like 20 minutes. Fuck, I need to go faster. Yes. Yeah, please take the thingy and...
That's all. Yeah, so proof of stake is really cool. We've heard about it for a long time. And so it's cool that seeing being implemented on such a large scale. And so, it's crazy that 61% is controlled by all these companies. So is the concern, what I am not clear on is the exact security concerns that we have with proof of stake. Is it a 51% attack, or is the validation like any more at risk because there's not this computation happening? Or like why are people against proof of stake, and what kind of security risks come with those that wouldn't come with proof of work?
Well, okay, I am not against proof of stake. I love it. Okay, it's a fantastic new paradigm when it comes to blockchain because it's scalable, because it's faster, because it consumes a lot less. Okay, but there are usage where it makes sense, and there are other usages where proof of work make sense. And this is what we're going to talk about a bit later. So the thing is, here, I am not saying, oh my God, we're fucked, Ethereum is becoming centralized. I'm saying we are seeing signs of potential centralization, and we need to look at them, okay? Vitalik Buterin, the guy who created Ethereum, smart guy, he's, after the merge, he's like, yeah, we've seen that. So far, no red line has been crossed. We're looking at it. So everybody is looking at it. The thing is, it's way too easy for people, because this is what we hear at the moment, is like, look, Ethereum switched from proof of work to proof of stake, it's working. Let's do that with Bitcoin and reduce energy consumption of Bitcoin by 99.95%. That would make sense. No, it doesn't. In part, for those reasons. Okay, so we have those problems. Okay, one thing that happened with the concentration of host and infrastructure. Oh, so yeah, I was there. So roughly 60% of the computational power that is being used at the moment on Ethereum is on the cloud. We're talking about web services. Now, who do you think runs more than 50% of all the Ethereum computational power that is being used today on the cloud? I give you one shot. Amazon. Yes, Amazon. Okay, so 53% of 60% means that Amazon right now is sitting on the computational power of over 30% of Ethereum. That's not enough, because obviously you would need more than 50%, as you said, the 51% attack. Basically, it's not an attack anymore, and we're going to talk about that kind of attack in a few minutes. But basically, we, at 3 different levels, Ethereum took a risk by switching their paradigm from proof of work to proof of stake. And the only thing I can say today is that we need to look closely at those things, okay? Because Ethereum is the most used blockchain in the world right now, with all those apps that are going on top, okay? So one thing that I've been saying in the last couple of talks that I've been doing here is that we really need, like one of the biggest fight, we had that discussion together for 2 hours, I remember, like the neutrality of the network we are using is the next major political fight and social fight that we have in front of us, okay? And here, I'm saying there might be a war coming. Let me have a bit of coffee. Okay, that one is covered, that one is covered. So basically, that's a trade-off. You lose a little bit in stability, in security, in centralization, but you gain in energy consumption by a factor of what the fuck. It's a lot. One thing that, one last point on the infrastructure thingy. One of the infrastructure, I forgot the name. Fuck, where is it? Etzner. Discovered that guy. Etzner was running was concentrating 11% of the computational power. Okay, it's a cloud service, and a couple of, not long ago, they're like, we are not gonna run proof of work or proof of stake work anymore on our service, on our machine. So roughly 10% of the Ethereum computational power has to be distributed between different services. Okay, that can create instability. 10%, they can deal with it. But if it's Amazon Web Service, and we're talking about like 50% of everything that's on the cloud, that has to be redistributed instantly, that could become a weakness. So there are different ways of fucking up with Ethereum, and one of them is by just saying, I stop working with you at one of those 3 levels, and that can create instability. Okay. Yes?
This shouldn't happen to Bitcoin. Thank you. You're saying this shouldn't happen to Bitcoin, but if we are on an energy crisis, obviously at some point they're going to try to save all the energy that Bitcoin is consuming to use it for heating people's living rooms.
Well, right now, because Ethereum switched from proof of work to proof of stake and reduced its consumption by 99.95%, the energy consumption of Ethereum is not a major problem anymore. However, your question I'd like to address with the next slide, which is Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin is still running proof of work. Okay? In fact, we heard, thank you. There is no spoon. Bitcoin is, in the word of Michael Saylor, pure digital energy. So Michael Saylor, if you don't know who that guy is, he's running a company named MicroStrategy. They own around 130,000 Bitcoin, which makes them the biggest Bitcoin holder. I mean, when we're talking about people going heavy in Bitcoin, the Bitcoin maximalist, this guy is first, on the front of the line. Okay? And I like this idea. I really like this idea. We'll try to understand what Bitcoin does exactly to energy and with energy. But today, it is my belief that basically Bitcoin is an energy-backed currency. Can I have the next slide? 1921, Henry Ford, you know, the guy that changed the world 101 years ago, he would replace gold with an energy currency. That idea is not new. Okay, using energy as a currency makes sense. It's just that nobody made it happen until someone, them, Satoshi Nakamoto came up with that idea and developed and created and launched Bitcoin back in 2009. Now, everybody is telling us, oh my God, Bitcoin is consuming so much energy. It's going countercurrent. I mean, that's obvious, right? We are trying to control our energy consumption, be better at everything. We're saying to Europe, you need to consume less. Sorry, I'm chasing thoughts here because I want to say something stupid. And at the same time, we have Bitcoin that is consuming more and more energy. Well, I'm going to quote an internal memo from Western Union from 1876. This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Western Union saying 150 years ago that telephone is such a stupid idea that it's never going to fly. Same is being said today about Bitcoin. So, can I have the next one? Yes. You find that on the web. I love it. Okay? Countries, how much energy terawatt-hour per year they're consuming. Bitcoin is number 30, or at least back in whatever when that thing. Can we please compare things that are comparable? I mean, it's like trying to compare a fridge and a car in terms of energy consumption or how fast they move. You know, sure, my fridge is not a good car. That makes no sense. You know, a country is a country. You know, there's people, there's surface, there are things to do. Bitcoin is a network. Hate those. Can I have the net one? Get rid of that thing here. Let's start with that one. I made it myself. I promise you I was not drunk. But it's kind of, I like it a lot, okay? Water behind a dam, what it is. Hydroelectricity, okay? what you can do is you can take energy. Let's say you have energy, okay, no matter which form. What you can do to store that energy is to take water and elevate it, okay? And elevated water is basically potential hydroelectricity, okay? If you have energy and you transform it into Bitcoin, the theory of Michael Saylor, and I love that theory, is that Bitcoin is digital energy. Because what we said about the proof of work thingy is that basically a bunch of computers are competing against each other. And to do that, they need to burn through a lot of energy. Okay? So one can look at it as a stupid way of burning energy, but you can also look at the Bitcoin that is being produced in this mining operation as the output of that energy. Okay? Why did we use gold as a store of value? For a couple of reasons. One, because it's very hard to fake gold. Two, because we guessed, and now we know, that there's a limited amount of gold that we can extract. Three, the gold you have was the proof of the work that you put into digging and getting it out. Okay? So Bitcoin is running on a proof of work, burning through a lot of energy. By design, it is rare because there will be only 21 million of them ever minted. And the thing is, it's nearly impossible, sorry, it's not nearly, it is fucking impossible to fake the amount of energy you need to extract Bitcoin. And as a consequence, the amount of energy you're burning gives you security. Okay? The energy consumption of Bitcoin is not a side effect of somebody who launched something and then we're like, oh my God, this is becoming a beast that is burning through more and more energy. No, it was expected. It is by design. This is what makes Bitcoin secure, the Bitcoin network. Okay? So the thing is, nobody ever faked energy. Okay? This is one thing that I really like about Bitcoin, is that it links a store of value and it links the digital world into the real world, in the sense that the laws of the thermodynamic are being applied on Bitcoin. I'll let you digest that because it's massive. Yes?
So, yeah, I'm in no position to dispute at all anything you're saying, but I am struggling to understand it in low terms because I'm looking to see the tangible worth. Now, I see that a Bitcoin is proof of the energy expended
Yes.
in order to produce it, and the proof of work, sure, but I don't see its tangible value in as much as you can't then trade in that Bitcoin for an equal amount of energy to use in the future. So I still, it's just me. Yeah, I guess.
Okay, no, I'm gonna, gold, yes. Let's use fiat, okay? The famous fiat currency. You know what fiat currency is? It's political energy. So we let politicians and lawyers and all those guys play with energy. Because, I mean, what are we doing with the value? Where is the money, the value coming from? Whether it's currency or gold or Bitcoin. Okay?
It's scarcity.
No, that's one of the characteristics, the scarcity. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it is about work. It is about energy. Okay? I dig a hole, I find gold or a diamond or something. That thing that I extract is a proof of my work. You pay me for this. So maybe you pay me with coconuts, or maybe you pay me with fiat currency, or maybe you pay me with whatever, okay? But basically, every time we are exchanging those storage of value, we are paying for work or service or a commodity and all that. But all that comes down to work. And in science, work is very much related to energy. In fact, I disagree with the word proof of work. Okay? We're talking about proof of power because it is an amount of energy that is being spent through time that allows Bitcoin to happen, and energy through time is power, not work. But that's just pure semantic. So fiat currency is a political expression of energy, basically. And they don't give a fuck about the laws of physics. Now let's imagine, okay, somebody build a boat, beautiful boat. We put it in the water and the thing starts to move and capsize. What do you think about the engineer? They did a shitty job. Okay? That's our politician fucking up with our currency all over the world, all the time. So what do? Well, we trust them to build the same boat. Okay? They just fire a couple of people, they say, oh, we put a new staff, and the boat goes at sea. What happened? It capsized again. Okay? We let them play with our energy in ways that is dissipating a lot because inflation, and in ways that is amazingly stupid because every, 5 to 10 years, it's fucked up somewhere. I mean, look at Turkey or Venezuela. Their money is crashing. Why? Because they do not respect the fundamental physics, the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. I pray, I wish that we let engineer and physician take care of our economy. Okay? Well, Bitcoin. In fact, Bitcoin. So, where am I? Okay, so you were talking about the 51% attack. Right now, and I'm going to give rough number, okay, because there are different estimates. But the Bitcoin network consumes around 100 terawatt per hour. That's a lot of energy. That's more than Argentina, just to give you a ballpark, which is true, you know. So to run a 51% attack, you need enough energy to run 51% of the network. Good luck with that. Now imagine that you secretly, on a small island, build up a bunch of nuclear power plants so you can do that. You have that energy. But now you need the computer. You need the mining rigs. Now, tell me where you're going to find the equivalent in terms of computational power of 50% of the mining rigs that are being used at the moment to secure Bitcoin. Good luck with that. Now let's imagine, let me finish that and then, okay. So let's imagine we're in a perfect James Bond scenario. You have your island, you have your whatever power plant, and you created computer out of the blue so you can process it. So now you are potentially in control of 50+% of the network. What are you going to do with that? Because the network is completely transparent. So as soon as you're going to fuck up with one information, as soon as you're going to do a double spending, as soon as you're going to play with your new toy, everybody's going to realize that. And the day I hear about it, I sell. You sell, you sell, you sell. And now you own 51% or plus of a network with no value. So in fact, the only incentive you have if you're a doctor now with your island and your power plant and the new computer, the best incentive you have is to use that power to run Bitcoin, not to attack it. Does that answer your question about the 51% attack?
Assume it's the only crypto coin in the ecosystem, right? Because you can crash another coin to increase the value of the second coin. I don't think that would happen necessarily with Bitcoin, but just the concept of the 51% attack using to sabotage.
Oh, yeah.
I was just saying that you could potentially use a 51% attack to sabotage one coin to basically devalue that one and bring up the coin that you actually wanted, which didn't have the 51. So it's not, I guess it's more than just Bitcoin in particular. I guess it would be the concept of the 51% attack being used to just destabilize the entire crypto ecosystem rather than just one particular coin.
So, okay, so the thing here is, and I'm going to express a personal belief, and I am far from being an expert when it comes to crypto, blockchain, and Web3. I'm trying to understand the whole thing, and I spend a lot of time educating myself, but I am not an expert. But the way I understand it is that we do not need many proof of work based blockchain. Okay? Most of them should run on proof of stake or other consensus protocol that will emerge. Okay? But we need at least one that is amazingly secure and that is transforming energy. And good luck with anyone who's going to try to beat Bitcoin at that game. So, yes, there is possibility to destabilize the ecosystem. We saw it a couple of, months ago. Luna, Luna UST. BlackRock, 150 whatever million, billion, I don't know, I don't remember exactly how it happened. Basically, somebody fucked that up, okay? And the way I see it, it was a hit, like Italian way. You have a bunch of guys with machine gun. They took two guys. What's your name? Luna, USC. 25 bullets in the body, and everybody wake up the next morning and be like, oh my God. That was a warning. You had a question.
Yeah, two questions. So when you're saying like this Doctor Who person who owns the 51 would not want to do it unless his goal is to destroy Bitcoin.
Good luck. The thing is, okay, in this hypothetical scenario, which again is very not realistic, okay? Because to get that much energy unnoticed, to get that much computational power unnoticed, and be able to fuck up with Bitcoin, not gonna happen. But let's imagine it happens.
Two questions about that.
Yes.
One, all this energy that Bitcoin needs to be produced and it stores. Once the Bitcoin is created, I buy it in Coinbase and I have it in a ledger here in my pocket.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't have all that, and it has the value of all that energy, but it's not consuming all this energy or create, that's it.
Not anymore, yeah.
So if somebody has the money to buy the 51%, they don't really need the energy, they just need the money. And if somebody has the same money as the whole money in Argentina or the energy, that wouldn't surprise me, because the 1% of people have more money than the rest of the world. Argentina is not a wealthy country.
Yes and no, because the thing, it's not just about money. To run Bitcoin, you don't need money. You need energy and computer. Those are the only two spending of Bitcoin miner. And in fact, energy, and this is the last part, is the biggest chunk of their spending. Okay? You need a shitload of energy, and you need optimized computer.
So the Bitcoin I have in my pocket is actually some energy being run somewhere still in a computer. It's not just like
No.
created and then that's it.
No, you can't.
Okay, that's my question. Yeah, because I don't know where it goes after it gets mined. I don't
No,
understand.
then the Bitcoin is just an information on a ledger. Okay? This is it. Who owns which Bitcoin? And who is sending Bitcoin to who? Not to who, to which wallet? Okay? That wallet is sending Bitcoin to that wallet. And in fact, the only function of Bitcoin is to pay for Bitcoin transaction. That's its only function. Now, what it does, the way it's been designed, it becomes not just electronic gold, but it's like digital energy. But the Bitcoin you have in your pocket doesn't consume energy. However, the maintenance of the network and the security of the network does. But it obeys to the fundamental laws of thermodynamics, and that is so poetic to me. Does that answer?
The laws of what you just said? It obeys to the laws
The
of...
laws of thermodynamics. Bitcoin equal MC2, MC squared. Okay, let's move on. Hardware innovation. So the thing is, we're talking about Bitcoin and we're like, oh my God, it's consuming so much energy. The thing is, one, we have Moore's law. So I don't know if you heard about that one, but it says roughly that the computational power capacity of a processor double every 18 months, which means that the rigs that are being built today are like 50 times more efficient than the one that were being used 5 or 8 years ago. Okay? So if you look at the amount of energy that is being used per unit of computational power, Bitcoin is driving a part of the industry to keep up with Moore's law, and per unit of computational power is using less and less energy. That's one thing. The other thing is the software innovation. By existing, Bitcoin somehow motivated a lot of people to come up with new ideas. The best one, and we just talked about it, is proof of stake. People looked at Bitcoin and its proof of work consensus mechanism, and they were like, maybe we can do better. And Vitalik Buterin came up, well, I guess him, I'm not very good with the blockchain history. Vitalik Buterin, they came up with Ethereum and the proof of stake. But there is another very interesting software innovation. It's the Lightning Network. And we're going to talk about the Lightning Network in a few seconds, but basically it's a layer 2. It's a layer that goes on top of Bitcoin network and that facilitates the use of Bitcoin by diminishing the amount of information or writings or transaction that we send on the Bitcoin network itself. And conscious ecosystem is something that we're going to talk again because that one is very important. As we just said, Bitcoin miners, they have two main spending. One, they need state-of-the-art rigging, computational power, so they can run their crazy equation. But what they really need, and this is the biggest of their spending, is energy. And what is very interesting is that in a few years, Bitcoin is now using like 60% of the energy that is being used on Bitcoin comes from renewable. They're doing a better job at it than Germany. If we really want to compare countries and network, let's compare that. The most efficient country in the world when it comes to energy usage is Bitcoin. Because those guys, the only way they can make more money or improve their return on investment and their margin is by finding the best energy, the cheapest energy, therefore the cleanest energy. Can I get the next one? Another thing that we hear is that if you look at the traditional financial system, the fiat system, it is way more efficient in terms of energy than Bitcoin. Okay? You go to the ATM, you put your card in, you just send a small transaction on your phone, whatever, it costs a lot less. Because the people who did those studies, they only looked at the cost of operating an online transaction. But if you take in account everything that makes the traditional financial system, creating coins and bills, transporting them, the brick and mortar facility, all the bank branches, the ATM, all that, we don't get the same number anymore. Okay? As I told you, roughly Bitcoin consumes 100 terawatt-hour per year. The banking system consumes 50 times more, 5,000 terawatt per hour, which put them slightly above China. I don't know. Let's have a look at it. Can you go back? Yeah, well. Okay, so the traditional financial system would be here. Okay? Close to China, way above USA. But they don't tell you that. Okay, they're just like, oh yeah, the Visa system, it's only using a little chunk of energy every time you do a transaction. Yeah, but they're not looking at everything that is needed to support that system. Can we, sorry. Nope, one more. No, one more. Yes, thank you. Okay, so I can send a link to the article that gives all that. In fact, I spent a couple of weeks to put all those information together. So if you want, I have a bunch of articles, videos. Most of them are in English, some of them are in French. Now, when it comes to just the transaction efficiency, okay, if you factor everything on both sides, the traditional financial system in one hand and the Bitcoin network on the other hand, and if you make the assumption that every block on Bitcoin network will be completely filled with transaction, one, and two, that we do not change the block size of Bitcoin, then Bitcoin is still 5 times more efficient for every transaction than the traditional banking system as it is today. Let me say that again. 5 times more efficient. Okay? Because the thing is, we do not realize, but the money we carry and all those brick and mortar transportation and all that are burning through a lot of energy, and they are leaving a massive carbon footprint behind them. Okay? 50 times more than Bitcoin. Now we're going to go to Lightning Network. So Lightning Network, as I just said, is a layer 2 that goes on top of the Bitcoin network. Okay, so the Bitcoin network, we briefly mentioned it, is just a ledger. You put block one next to each other. In those blocks, you register a transaction which track who's owning, which wallet is owning what Bitcoin. That's all it does. It's very solid, it's encrypted, it cannot be cracked, and it's burning through a lot of energy because it is energy. Now, the Lightning Network is something that goes on top, and it's going to help scaling up and gaining in terms of speed what Bitcoin cannot do. So let me use that analogy. We are in a bar, okay? We're in an Irish pub. I'm going to have Guinness, a lot of them. Two possibilities. I go to the bartender, I order my Guinness, I pay for it. Okay? So I give him a bill, he gives me my change, can drink my Guinness. 5.5 minutes later, maybe 6, I'm done. I want a second one. So I go back to the bartender, he's pouring a Guinness, and I need to pay for it. Okay? We have a new transaction. Again and again and again. So 12 beer later, I've been through 12 transactions. Now imagine that every time, I mean, basically it has a cost. It's a small cost in my example, but I have to go through my pocket, find the money, and he has to go through his cashier and find the change and all that. Okay? We're losing time, we're losing energy. Now imagine, this is the second scenario, I walk in and I open a tab. Okay? Because they want to make sure that I'm not going to run away, I'll leave my card with them. So I leave a proof that I am serious enough. Now I can order my beer, I get them, every 5.5 minutes, I drink a Guinness, and when I'm done, at the end, I can close my tab, and there's going to be only one transaction. Okay? That's what Lightning Network is doing to Bitcoin on a much bigger scale, because in fact, you're not just opening one relationship between two people, but you're opening a set of relationships as soon as you staked a little bit of money to prove that you're serious enough, and then you can operate as many transactions that are not being registered, recorded on the Bitcoin network itself. It stays on a different layer, and when you want to close your tab, then there's going to be one transaction, only one, being registered, recorded on the Bitcoin network. Now, when you factor Lightning Network as it is today, I'm not talking about a future super powerful Lightning Network. If you run Lightning Network on top of Bitcoin, then the transaction efficiency compared to the traditional fiat system goes into the 100 millionth time more efficient. Not 50, not 5, not 100, not 1,000. We're talking, we're in the millions. Yes?
So I have just one question about the Lightning Network,
Yeah.
and where you said there's the closing of the tab, like you're at the Irish bar drinking your Guinness, which is something I could relate to. But the bar has a closing time, and then the transaction is recorded. Now, you said that until you close the transaction on Lightning, it's not recorded on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yes.
So is it possible for somebody to, in fact, acquire a lot of Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, but it's not transparent to everybody else, and because they don't close their tab on the Lightning Network, and that could be a way that the transparency is kind of navigated around by the said James Bond villain, for example?
Yeah. Okay. Very good question. First thing, I am really not an expert in Lightning. Really not. Okay? However, what I do know about Lightning, it is transparent. And
So there's a level of transparency on the Lightning also.
Yes.
So
yes.
Okay. Well,
It
that
is
answers the
transparent.
question.
It is decentralized. It carries the value of Bitcoin. All the good value we talked in previous talk are embedded in the DNA of the Lightning Network.
So it's like your, back to the Irish bar, it's like your current tab as it accrues is displayed for all to see. Okay, fine.
Yes.
Great, you've answered the question, thank you.
And I love that Irish pub because it's running 24/7. Okay, can I have the next one? So now I want to rephrase the question. Let's look at it the other way around. Can Bitcoin use enough energy to make a real change to the world? Because I want to finish on a on a softer, positive note. And this is my belief. I really believe that Bitcoin, the way it's being run, the way it's being designed, what it does, will mechanically, physically, on the ground, help the world becoming a better place. Can I have the next one? So literally what is happening today is that Bitcoin mining operations are burning through so much energy, and that energy is literally their biggest spending by far, that they have a massive incentive to optimize their business. Okay? It's not like any other industry that tells you, yeah, by 2088 we will reduce our carbon footprint by 2.5% because we hear you. Okay, those guys are not into greenwashing. They are not trying to make you believe that they're making the world a better place. They have to optimize their energy consumption, but not just their consumption. They have to optimize what kind of energy they're finding, where they're finding it, and they have to establish relationships with grid operator and energy producer. So the first thing that we can address, and in fact we already talked about it, there's a massive push to go green. Okay? Bitcoin in 2021 was using, 60% of the energy used by the Bitcoin mining operations were coming from renewable. Okay, so as we said, the marginal cost to produce renewable energy, the viable cost is zero. Once you paid for the infrastructure, once the solar panels are there, yes, they have a lifetime and a lifespan, and they might have to be decommissioned 20, 30, 50 years down the road, but once they are there, just wait for the sun. There's sun, you have energy. You have energy, you can mine Bitcoin. The very good thing with Bitcoin is that it doesn't care when and where you get energy. And this is key for the next coming point. So if you look closely at what the Bitcoin mining operations are doing, they are really looking for those solutions. They are pushing for it. And as I said, if Bitcoin was a country, it would be the greener country in the world. But Bitcoin is not a country. Let's compare what's comparable. As long as we had it, the greenhouse gas emission from Bitcoin went down from like 60 metric tons of carbon to nearly 50. So it went down by like, is that like a 15 or 17%? Something like that. Okay. So because they're moving into green and they're really pushing into it, in fact, they're starting to operate their own self-sustainable power plant that for some of them at the moment are not even connected to the grid. Okay, they go somewhere, they're like, looks good, wait, looks better, I have wind, I have sun, let's build it here.
The main industry right now in the world that actually benefits from saving energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, on paper, every industry in the world is benefiting from going green and reducing their energy consumption. But for a lot of those industries, it requires a paradigm shift, like Ethereum did, for instance. Imagine you're running the airplane industry, and everybody's like, you need to reduce your consumption. Yeah, but I need to fly. How can I? Not that easy for them, okay? Because they have to retrofit everything. Yeah.
Like, I could understand, my company could make so much better if I make all this change, but all this change is going to cost me all this money. I want to make the money today.
Yes.
So the only ones that are desperate to be as green as possible today
Yes.
are the Bitcoin miners.
Yes. And the thing is, One, they are desperate because it is by far their biggest spending, and this is the only industry in the world that use, for which the energy represents so much of their business operation. So that's one thing. Then, literally, Bitcoin mining is bringing new business model. It is optimizing the existing asset. I'm going to give an example, but in the US, some nuclear power plant are starting Bitcoin mining. Because as we said a lot earlier, it's hard to crank up or crank down a nuclear power plant. Some can, but it's not the way it's been designed. It's been designed to have a constant output and just provide that. Which means that sometimes they produce too much. Again, the energy production needs to match exactly the energy consumption. So if the consumption is not here, then you have energy that is literally being wasted. Unless you have solution to like elevate water, for instance, or if you have batteries. But running Bitcoin mining operations makes complete sense to them. So they're doing it. Okay? So that is literally a new revenue stream with no marginal cost for a nuclear power plant.
So just to clarify on that point, so in other words, at those times when said power plant is producing more than is actually being consumed, that's when they kind of flick the switch and start Bitcoin mining. Okay.
Yes, or you can even go one step further. You can crank up and produce more than you used to produce. Okay, I mean, there's a limit to what a nuclear power plant can produce, but once it's set there, it produces that. Mm-hmm. So if you understand, and the thing is, nuclear energy is a very cheap energy.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very expensive to set up. It takes a lot of time to build a nuclear power plant and reactors and all that. But once it's there, the cost of maintenance is very small compared to the output in terms of energy. Okay, and the fuel itself, the uranium, doesn't cost that much. And it's very small and it produces very little waste. It does. Not the topic of the talk. But it makes sense if I was running a nuclear power plant and I'm running usually at, let's say, 70% of my capacity to go up to 80 and use those additional 10% every time I can. If they are not being used by the network, then I'm running them. Yeah. So what happened is that now Bitcoin miners, they just look around and they're like, hey, you have a power plant. What's your waste? What's the amount of energy that you're producing or that you could produce that is clean, that I can buy from you at a discount? Now, another thing, demand response and load balancing. So again, we have to keep in mind that production needs to match consumption at every single moment. They move together. That's why we have the gas on top. Okay? So what they're going to do in Europe, okay, I've seen that in the news in France. They have an app that you can install on your phone that's going to give you warning when there is an overload coming. When they see that the consumption is going to go, you're going to get a notification on your phone just giving you the information, and then on your consciousness, you can decide whether, what you do with your energy consumption. Okay? So this is a way of doing a load balancing. If you can ask everybody to consume a little bit less, then you can go through the peak.
They've instigated systems like that in California, where I currently live, rolling blackouts and warnings and
exactly.
Time limits and so forth.
Exactly. So the demand response mechanism is basically, you find, like I'm a grid operator, okay? And I can spot profile of industries or people who don't care, who can say, sure, I shut down. Okay, and Bitcoin can do that. Bitcoin miners can do that. So what you get as a Bitcoin miner in exchange for that service, which is shutting down your operation when the network needs it, is a discount, which again is going to reflect on the bottom line because energy is the biggest spending for a Bitcoin miner. So what I want to illustrate here basically is that monstrosity, so-called monstrosity that Bitcoin is with its crazy energy consumption. Like 5 years ago, there was articles that say if Bitcoin keeps on doing that, it's going to consume more than what the world can produce in 10 years from now. Still running. Bitcoin is a driving force, Bitcoin mining, which again, Bitcoin is a form of energy. It's one of the cleanest energy you get because it's being completely digitalized, which means it can travel all around the world at the speed of light, which is crazy. But it is a driving force when it comes to switching to our old energy system to the new one we need. And I don't know who was there on my previous talk, but can I get the next slide? For those of you who were here, you know how passionate and driven I am with the third industrial revolution. And what happened between that talk and 2 days that I realized that Bitcoin is literally one of the major solutions we have to implement that shift. So I remember we had a talk together about that, but I'm going to go into it, and this is how I'm going to close this talk. Yeah, we have 10 minutes. Can I get the next slide? And this is the last one. Industrial revolution. Every time an industrial revolution happened in the world, there was a convergence of 3 things that happened roughly at the same time. We had a new way of communicating, we had a new way of transporting people and goods, and we had a new way of producing energy. Okay? Every time we had a convergence of those 3 things, the aggregated efficiency of everything we do, the aggregated efficiency of our use of energy, let's go back to fundamental energy, went up by orders of magnitude, or at least a few X's. Okay? Let me give you 2 examples. The most recent one, 19th century in the UK. Kind of at the same time, 3 things happened. The telegraph, which was a way of sending information really fast from one place to another. Okay? You can send like small letters and completely revolutionary. New way of communicating. On top of that, they invented the steam engine. And to propel those steam engine, they needed coal. So they find out coal, they start digging coal, they put that into a steam engine, they take those steam engine, they put it on rail, industrial revolution. Okay? The aggregated efficiency of everything, because we're able to talk faster and move things faster, and and we had access to more energy, basically, changed the world completely. 100 years later, in the US, 3 things happen. The telephone, radio, telephone, TV, and all that, car, buses, truck, and so on, and petrol. Okay? And that is the industrial revolution that got us where we are today. But there's a ceiling on the aggregated efficiency that you can get on everything you produce. In fact, the best that was ever achieved was in Japan around the 1990s, where they were able to achieve around 20% aggregated efficiency of their production. Okay? In the US, it was around 14%. That was good, but it's been like 20, 30 years ago, and it's not moving. Okay? So the thing is, you can come up with new product or with new solution, but if you don't have a revolution, we are capped. There's no way, like right now, whatever we're producing today in 2022, no matter where it is in the world, yes, it might be slightly more efficient, but we achieved that efficiency 30 years ago. It's not moving. But we had the internet, a new way of communicating. And blockchain is, a new step on top of that. So we have a new way of communication. It's been around for 20 years. We've seen how it changed the world. It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, the Airbnb, the Uber, and all that. Everything. I mean, I don't need to explain to you how internet revolutionized the world, but it was just in terms of communication. We have a new way of transportation that is coming. Self-driving vehicle. Is there anybody here who do not believe that self-driving vehicle will take over? Even in Bali. But you're going to have self-driving scooters. So what? I mean, you're going to have self-driving vehicle, automotive. The thing is, why do we need scooter in Bali or in Indonesia in general or like in Southeast Asia? Is because we have a lot of traffic, because there's a lot of vehicles. But when you go into a fleet of shared vehicle, you go rental, not rental, but you go like, you stop owning, but you're sharing a fleet, then the number of vehicles, the estimate that's been given is that the number of vehicles on the road would be divided by 15. So at least by a factor of 10. So you remove 9 vehicles out of 10 here in the street in Bali, and you tell me if you still have traffic jam, especially when they're driving together and they're not as stupid as we are. Because that's the thing, is like why we have a traffic jam, because I stop, because I don't know, because I'm not sure. But if it's a computer running the thing, it's gonna fly. So do we have any doubt on the fact that a fleet of self-driving electrical vehicles are gonna take over and replace all the traffic in the world? Because I have absolutely no doubt, and if you want, I can try to convince you, but not today. So what we need, the only thing we need to have the next industrial revolution that is going to bring our aggregated efficiency to a new level, and that's literally going to save the world, in my opinion, is a new way of producing energy. For that, we need to move into a smart grid where production is decentralized. Ring a bell? Decentralized? Okay. And that thing is going to run on an Internet of Things. They already call it the Internet, the Internet of Energy. And what I came to realize in the last few weeks is that one of the driving forces to make exactly that happen is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to save the world. Questions? There might be questions online. No? Okay.
For all of that, we need 5G, right? For that to work, we need 5G.
Yeah. For the Internet of Things, yes.
And the self-driving cars.
Well, self-driving car is just a new way of transportation. The Internet of Things might be my next talk. We'll see about that. Okay, there are, at the moment, around 4 billion individuals on the Internet. And it is in everybody's best interest to bring the other 3 billion as fast as possible on Internet. But right now, there are already like 15 billion objects on the Internet. I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I don't have one, but you can have fridge that are connected. You can have your phone talking with your fridge. You can talk with your kettle. You can talk with your car, obviously. You can talk with plenty of different objects. So the thing is, those objects are going to talk to each other, and this is how we're going to run the world. Like, you're a farmer. I mean, we're spending a lot of time talking with farmers, but right now, you know, how do you deal with your farm, especially for the one who have like extensive, intensive farm, which are like, you know, as big as Bali. You know, how do they monitor that? Well, you can place smart objects. They are connected, they talk to each other. So you can, I don't know, identify the weather, decide how much water or how much fertilizer or when it is a good time to pick it up and all that. So I sincerely believe that Internet of Things is a good thing in the happening. Now, we are coming back to one of the things that we already addressed together, as long as we have the neutrality of the network on which it's being run.
So what if the 5G is causing all these frequencies in the air, is causing things to our health, but it's also in the farm, for example, is killing the birds. And so the birds that were part of that ecosystem, now they're not there. So the farm also is going to suffer the consequences of that, those electromagnetic frequencies there.
I cannot answer that question. I am not an expert. Like, it's not that I'm not an expert. I have no idea. I didn't educate myself yet, you know, on all those frequencies thingy and how it affects people's sleep, food, water. I don't know.
Top 3 power sources that you think are going to potentiate all this happen? Like, what are the sources of energy that you think are going to rise up in this decentralized environment?
Okay, we need to consider 2 different aspects. The first one is, as we said, there is, you know, production needs to match consumption at any given time, and we need a big chunk of energy. We have 2 different periods. We have the transition from today until we're out of the wood. And then what happens when we're out of the wood? In the transition period, I am a firm believer that nuclear energy is going to be the key. We need it for the next, I would say, 20 to 40 years. Which means that, in my personal opinion, we need to build nuclear power plants today. I've read articles about much smaller nuclear power plants, nuclear reactor. I think it's Bill Gates who's working on it. And basically, they, instead of having like those massive buildings, you know, they have something that fits in his room, which, like, you know, it produces less energy. But right now, we are still running on a fleet of nuclear reactors that were built 20 to 50 years ago, except in the United Arab Emirates. Yeah, true, and China. But the UAE, they just built, or they're still in the process of building 3 reactors right now. Took them 8, 9, and 10 years to get them online and running, which is short. But again, it takes a decade to make a switch transition between the moment you make the decision and the moment it's applied, okay? Germany, it was after Fukushima that they were, oh, maybe we're gonna stop this. And they are still not done with the transition. So, and yes. So the thing is, and I know that I'm opening a massive can of worm here, but in my personal opinion, nuclear energy is a very clean energy. like okay, but again, like this would be like another hour of discussion and presentation, and yeah, and it's not meant to happen like here. You know, I'm trying to keep it centered around blockchain, even though the topic was energy. So I believe that to operate that transition, to get us out of the wood, we need to rely on nuclear energy. It is, let's say, the least problematic solution that is at our disposal that's gonna at the same time produce all the things we need and not fuck up the environment. I do not believe that cranking down our consumption by like an order of magnitude will work. So, just saying, let's stop consuming, not gonna fly. I don't trust you guys. I mean, not you, but I don't trust the 7 billion of us to make a move in that direction. Now, once that is done, once the transition is done, it is going to be about fully renewable energy in a decentralized way. Every single building, house, office, warehouse, whatever, is going to be its own small energy production plant. Okay? And whatever you don't use, you can store in a battery. So small parenthesis here, but we're going to need to build a lot of batteries. Therefore, we're going to need a lot of copper. And if you're interested in copper mining, we did something interesting about that, and we tokenized mine. The use of copper in the next 20 years is just going to go through the roof. End of the parenthesis. So the thing is, at the individual level, I have my house, I have whatever energy, renewable energy that I can have, depending on where I live. It can be geothermal, it can be hydraulic, it can be sun, it can be wind, it can be a mix of all that. I'm collecting my energy, I'm storing as much as I can. Whatever I don't need, I pour on the network